Welcome to Resume Storyteller with Virginia Franco, bringing you interviews with industry experts and regular folks who tested the job search waters and succeeded, and strategies to tell your story and land you job interviews in 60 days, guaranteed. Here's your host, Virginia Franco.
Hello guys, it is freezing cold on this January afternoon, and I am so excited to have with me President and founder of the Hired Group, Al Smith. Al is the author of the job search manual, Hired, Every Employment Method, and was the predominant co-author of the Amazon bestseller and top-rated Hired, Path to Employment in the Social Media Era. He brings to the table more than 35 years of executive management, sales, marketing, training, and coaching experience, and served as a national trainer for 3 companies in 2 different industries. Al's helped over 1,000 people with their job search, in huge part thanks to his proprietary Words to Work, page 1 keyword methodology that he's used to exponentially increase LinkedIn profile views and help job seekers through the black hole of online resume submissions. So Al, thank you so much for joining me and welcome.
This is a privilege to be speaking with you. Thank you.
Oh, gosh. So you heard the quick overview that I just gave. How did you fall into this particular role that you're in now?
Probably, I'd have to say by accident. I found myself in job search mode, like so many of your listeners, and the things that had always worked for me in the past weren't working for me at all. And although I've won more awards than I have fingers and toes for, I couldn't get a nibble, and it quite frankly put me into a tizzy because it lasted for over 2 years.
Oh my gosh.
And I was drugged kind of kicking and screaming to a job networking event here in the Atlanta area on the north side. We have more job networking venues than any place else in the country.
Oh.
And my next door neighbor drugged me over there. And I mean, I didn't want to be around, gutter scum, unemployed. Well, what were you, Al? Oh, never mind. But I looked at the people there, and they were like me, and they were like you, and they're like everybody else that I knew, and I was moved so much that I went to the website the next day, and there was an anonymous person who had written that he'd lost his job, he was virtually penniless, his wife had left him. His house was about to be foreclosed on, and he was in total despair. And unfortunately, I knew precisely what this guy was capable of doing to himself because I contemplated it too. And I swore that as soon as I got a job, I'd help people get jobs. So, most of us, we just apply into the black hole, online submissions with no luck. And I want my clients to avoid the black hole, if at all possible.
When did you realize that what you were doing was not working? That the black hole phenomenon was in fact what was going on with you?
Yeah, I was applying to jobs left and right. I mean, all over the country because I'm not married to this town. And I was perfectly qualified for these jobs, and I'd hear nothing, and I'd apply, and I'd apply, and I'd apply. I've even read an article in the Wall Street Journal a few years ago that one fellow had applied to over 400 jobs in a 6-month period, and it's like, you want to slap your head and say, what's the definition of insanity?
Yeah.
Keep doing the same thing. So I ended up kind of obsessing about what was going on in job search. And what I found was amazing. It's less of a person one-on-one thing where you would send in a resume and somebody with 2 eyes and a brain reads it. It's now being read by computers. And if you don't satisfy the computer's eyes, the criteria that it's looking for, you never get to the human's eyes. So then other technology, this was the dawn of LinkedIn when it came out of Silicon Valley and into our homes. And if you don't jump on those things, get the crest of the wave, you've missed it and it's crashed on you.
that obviously LinkedIn has been around for a while. Your job search despair was quite a while ago as well. Are there common or major challenges common to people facing job search today that you see?
Yes, unfortunately, people don't know what they don't know. And I mean, they believe that the old methods, whatever, all the things that worked for them in the past will work for them today. And unfortunately, that's not the case. And so, I have to think about how recruiters find people. How do they find people? So they start out with the job title that they have, their requisition. They start with the job title, which is a set of keywords, and then they add 3 to 5 more keywords to parse down the number of results that they get. Their goal is about 25 people to start doing phone interviews with. 10 people, to whittle that down to 10 people for initial face-to-face, maybe 3 to 5 at the most for the final interviews, and they make a decision. So if you're not positioned, if all your documentation, whether it's your resume, your online profiles, especially LinkedIn, if you're not found in the first couple of 3 pages, you're not going to be spoken to, which harkens back to the length of time, the average time of transition during the recession was 40.4 weeks. That's almost 10 months.
10 months, yeah.
So it's crazy. So you have to understand how job search works in today's world and reverse engineer your resume and LinkedIn or other profiles, online profiles, and stay on top of it. You have to think about what they're looking for and then present yourself to that.
I mean, you just spelled out loud and clear why LinkedIn is so important, because it doesn't really matter how well you do on ATS if they're not finding you on LinkedIn, right? I guess it depends on search versus gathering resumes.
Yeah, but they really work kind of the same way, hand in glove, because the recruiters will set up a search query on whatever the job board is or series of job boards.
Right.
And if you don't fall into that, if you don't have the right combination of keywords, you don't get through. As a matter of fact, in my first book, the only thing that I didn't talk about that I probably could have was cover letters. And the reason I didn't was because every time I would ask a recruiter, do you read cover letters? They'd say, no, we don't have time.
Yeah.
But in my second book, The Hired Every Employment Method, you can use a cover letter to increase the probability of getting through the ATS. If you do it right, if you know how ATSs, similar like the Taleo system, work. They start at the top of the document. Notice I didn't say resume. Mm-hmm. They fill in their little blocks and continue to look for keywords throughout the document all the way to the end of it. So if you create a cover letter unique to the job you're applying to, a 1-page cover letter, save it, then copy it, and paste it as the 3rd page of your resume document, upload all 3 pages at the same time, the chances of getting through and being up on the top tier increases dramatically.
So page 1 of resume, page 2 of resume, page 3 cover letter.
Yeah. And the reason you don't put the cover letter as the first page is because of the way the ATSs work.
Yeah, it scores. It won't give as much weight to the keywords on page 1 of your resume. In this case, it would be page 2 if the cover letter was
right.
Front and center, right? Okay. So, and maybe you just answered it. Is there sort of something that you find that clients are just, gobsmacked or very surprised by time and time again?
Yeah, I do a lot of volunteering at the job networking events. And one of the workshops that I do is a resume writing workshop. And simple things like a dividing line can keep you from getting through some ATSs. The use of the header footer function can keep you from getting through some ATSs. When I see bullet points just on the left-hand side, I know the electronic submission will be fine. But when I see them in the middle, then I know that somebody has used either the column feature or the table feature or the symbol feature. Each of those can stop you from getting through some ATSs. So yeah, people are gobsmacked. I mean, think of it. You're perfectly qualified for a job. You apply to it and you hear nothing. Well, it might be that you never got through the ATS.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you brought up the point, some ATS, because last I checked, there were like 273 different systems. Is that still the case? Is it maybe more?
Yes. I just took the top 10. I created a slide and took the top 10 a few years ago. And it's like, this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Right. But you have to hedge your bets, and you have to know which ones are the top and sort of go with those guidelines. Bullets on the left, nothing can be, headers and footers can't be read by some, anything in a text box.
Anything in a text box, and no graphics. And when I see some of these beautiful resumes, it's like, oh my goodness, this isn't going to get through. Now, having a quote beautiful resume is great to hand to somebody with two eyes and a brain.
Right, for human beings.
But you got to get past the computer's eye.
What is your take on resume templates? The ones I see, it seems like you're putting information in text boxes to complete it. And
I'm totally against it. When I write a resume, it's always unique. My personal favorite style is the hybrid or combination resume, where if you use a functional resume, it's immediately seen as a red flag. If you use just the traditional chronological resume, which most people use, for every month that you're out of a job, the gap between now and then gets wider. And if you use a combination of those two, you can bring up to the top certain qualities or value proposition or accomplishments, core competencies that are important for the hiring manager, so they know immediately, without having to read through a couple of pages of gobbledygook, that you have those qualities. And I found that hiring managers love that hybrid style.
Well, no one wants to read through pages of gobbledygook, period. You lose them. So the box might be able to score it, but the people can't stand it.
Yeah.
What drives you most crazy when it comes to job seeker mishaps? Is there something that you try to explain sort of over and over again, and then you just still go, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is still happening?
Well, I go back to the old Einstein quote. When I hear somebody, I've applied and I've applied and I've applied, but I get no results. Well, that makes me crazy.
Definition of insanity, yeah.
So it makes me even crazier than normal. But we need to understand that there are a lot of other things that we can do besides just applying into the black hole. I mean, we can create a value proposition deck. You can proactively send documentation to somebody above above your level, a couple of steps above your level, and they might do a waterfall. Hey, take a look at this person. This is impressive. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I had a client refer somebody else to me, and we were discussing, a former client, discussing this person's background and where he wants to go. And he mentioned, Victor had this presentation that he showed us, and it just blew us all away, and nobody else came close. And we were discussing it on Skype. I'd stuck my thumb drive in for former clients, and I said, does this look familiar? He said, you have it. You have his thing. I said, yeah, I built it.
Well, you bring up a good point. And the odds of return on just simply applying online are so little. They're greater when you have followed the rules to not get kicked out, but it's still a numbers game. And I love your advice, which is what I preach as well. Try to go in, find alternative channels to get your information in front of people. Appeal to human beings.
Yes.
Because then when you apply online, it doesn't matter then as much if you're number 5 or number 5,000 to come through, because you've got a human being on the other end looking for you.
Exactly. And if once you've applied, why don't you try to do some research for people on the inside that you can reach out to help you get your resume, your application out of the queue and into a real person's hands. Because if you have the job title and the requisition number or job ID number, you can reach out to people, and some of them even get a spiff of up to $1,500 for a referral.
No joke. Referral bonuses can be pretty nice little income stream.
You bet.
How often do you find where the posting comes out, but by the time it has done so, there's already sort of a strong pipeline of people that have come in through the back door, maybe making the online process a formality rather than a place where they're going to gather additional names?
Well, a lot of companies have to live up to the EEOC regulations, and they'll post a job, but have an internal candidate or more than one internal candidate that they're predetermined to hire or promote, but they have to go through the motions, which is why in a final interview, I want all my clients to ask the question, are you considering any internal candidates? You need to know. I mean, if you've gone through an interview and they said, we really love you, but we went with somebody else, almost all of those were internal candidates. So the only way that I've found that you have any chance, and to me, this is the most difficult thing to overcome, is to try to talk about what you bring to the table that is different from everybody else. Meaning, when we were back in school, we learned in marketing a term called groupthink, where when you work together, people work together for a period of time, they start thinking alike and coming up with the same answers and so forth. But by hiring you, you're not coming in with jaundice or predetermined answers. And I would use in my own case a line that I had in an annual review a bunch of years ago that said, Al's always been the person who asked the question, has anybody thought about?
Yeah, you bring a unique and fresh perspective.
So, let's jump out of the box a little bit and show what you bring to the table for the company, differentiate yourself from everybody else, and showcase your personal brand, your value proposition.
I love that. So what advice would you give someone when they are at the beginning of the process of making a career move? What's the best way to get started?
Well, I don't want this to sound self-serving, but I think it's a really smart investment to get a career coach. We go to school to learn what we don't know. We read books to learn what we don't know. We buy books. We pay our way through school. And we don't know how job search
It's not
evolved.
intuitive. It's not an intuitive process for most.
Sure. And I mentioned I can be rented, but in my workshops, but I think it's incumbent upon me to say, here are other people who I recognize as very good, excellent career coaches, and I'll share with you their contact information, because the coach and the client need to be in sync with each other. And my personality might not be right for you. So I'm willing to introduce you to other people I respect. Because unfortunately, there's plenty of work to go around for us as coaches and resume writers. So I think we need to share our expertise, even if it's with recommending other people.
I agree. And a career coach can do so much more than, giving you feedback or write your documents. They can help you to determine what might make the most sense for people that are struggling with what direction to go next, how to, and then create a roadmap, I guess, for the process.
Yes. And you think about it, a career coach who knows what to do and what not to do can save a client somewhere between 3 and 6 months off their job search. And if you put that to dollars and cents, how much do you make a month?
Right.
Then let's go at the short end. Let's say the coach only saves you 3 months off your job search. Well, 3 months times my salary is what versus the cost of the coach?
Right. No, it's return on investment. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what about that person who didn't come to you at the beginning and is engaged in a job search and it is not going well?
That's where I get most of my clients, unfortunately. Yeah. And there are other avenues that are out there. For instance, starting your own business. And I see this all the time where people have waited months and months and months, and the bank account is dwindling. Right. And they get stuck and they get nervous, and the hiring people can smell it on you. They can smell the fear. Mm-hmm. So even no matter where you are in your job search, it might be worth the investment for getting a coach, and it's certainly a resume writer.
There's nothing else to help boost your confidence so that you don't go in and perform poorly on interviews because you do lack confidence.
Exactly. And one of the coaches here that I'm associated with and recommend, her name is Cindy Sapoznik, and her moniker is the confidence coach.
Oh, I love that.
And her specialty is mock interview. So she gets you interview ready. And one of my favorites is Alex from Your Way.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah. And he's one of the people that I recommend. He's in my workshop presentations all the time.
That's how you and I met, through common conversations on LinkedIn, the power of LinkedIn.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, no, he's great. He's fabulous with salary negotiations.
He is. He really is.
What about, and this is who I get, people that come to you with a real diversity of skills, and they're like, well, I can do this or I could do that. And they really can go in a number of different directions. What are your thoughts on that, and how do you advise them to proceed?
Okay, that's a tough one because I get it all the time.
Yeah.
If you say that you're everything to everybody, you end up being nothing to nobody. Mm-hmm. And so you think of, I equate this to a funnel. One side of the funnel is great big. One side of the funnel is real small. If you say you're everything to everybody, it's like looking through the large side of the funnel into out of the small end, and you can see almost nothing. Recruiters are the same way. They have a job title that they have, a requisition that they have to fill, and they're looking for qualities, specific ones. And some companies are so focused on the verticals that any variation to that, you confuse them. So if you turn this around the other way and focus on this narrow area, and then you add that you also have these other qualities, it's like looking through the small end, and there's an expansive view through that. So they can see you in the position they have and value-added position too.
Yeah, I always say everyone thinks they want a specialist, but they're really thrilled to have a generalist. You just have to convince them that you're the specialist first.
Yeah. And smaller companies, at least they recognize that.
True. They need, they need more people. They need one person to wear 3 hats.
Yeah. More hats than a millinery store. I'm old enough to remember a hat store.
So this next topic is one that comes up. I want to ask you your thoughts on discrimination. Obviously, there's more than one kind of discrimination. The one that I get the most of is age, but there's, I deal with people that are too worried about being too old, but certainly the reverse is true, where people are worried they're too young. What are your thoughts on it? And how do you advise people?
To me, this is so stupid. I mean, just lunacy. Because I, as a hiring manager, a longtime executive, I've always wanted to surround myself with the best people. Period.
Regardless of who they are. Yeah.
I don't care. I don't care what your orientation is. I don't care what your gender is. I don't care your age, whether old or young. I don't care. What I want is the right person. And I mean, I have a horrible true story. I got promoted. That's why I'm here in Atlanta. And I was looking to add a person in either Washington, D.C. or Richmond, Virginia. Mm-hmm. And it was the last day of a small convention, very poorly attended that last day. You could throw a ball in the place and nobody would get hit. And so I took out resumes for one of the two cities. And I started reading through them. And the fellow that I'd worked with my very first day at that company asked if I wanted him to look through some of them too. And what's the harm, right? Right. So I hand him another. It was a little cardboard box full of stuff. Talk about the old days. And all of a sudden he starts chuckling and says, "I guess you want me to throw this one away." And I looked at the resume. I start reading this thing, and the person had great qualifications. I said, "Well, what, why, what?" And he pointed to Howard University. Okay. I took a deep breath, gathered all the resumes up, put them back in their little boxes, and left. I mean, my blood pressure is rising right now telling the story. I mean, I don't want the best person. My job is to sell stuff. And I don't want the best salesman. No, this is crazy. Yeah. In short, there's discrimination of all sides and sizes and shapes and so forth. And if they're so simple-minded as to make a hiring decision against somebody for any of those isms, age, color, gender, or whatever, you don't want to work for them. I know. So, I mean, and when it comes to age, I do a baby boomer workshop, but I've also created a workshop for millennials and new college graduates. In my book, I have a subsection for, I call baby elephants because there's an elephant in the room. If I know what the bias is against a group, I can come up with a way to get over that in most cases. So I have a subchapter title about baby elephants. Then I have another one for, I call it Tuscus elongatus, meaning those of us who are long in the tooth. Got it. Think about that one a minute. So there are different biases for and against people like me who have had a Clairol moment or two. There are biases against younger folks. Yeah. So if we know what they are, we can position ourselves to not be seen in that same light.
Again, I agree with you that, why would you want to work with a company that's clearly more interested in checking off that they've met this, that, and the other box than the person who's the best fit? But how do I say this? So walk me through the biases in the baby boomer group, for instance.
Sure. So a lot of baby boomers are thought of that we can't keep up with technology. Well, okay. We invented the technology for one. We're seeing that we have health problems. Well, I don't know about that. You can talk about the things that you bring to the table. And actually, when I was doing research for my book, I came across an article in The Guardian, and they had a series of biases against older workers. One was they don't want to work for a younger manager or a younger team. So I came up with some ideas for challenging that. So the answer might be, I've successfully worked for managers younger and older than me. And my experience has been that the entire team is better when there's a mix of ideas. And I can't wait to get started working for you. Notice there's the assumptive close in there. Yeah. Or I've worked on teams with different people, with people of different ages, genders, ethnicities, and our results have won awards. I feed off the energy of diverse groups, don't you? Another one is that we lack energy. So you want to do a little body language here, like sit forward a little bit, never sit all the way back in your chair, and show your enthusiasm. Other ones like we can't deal with change. one of the few things that you can count on in life is change.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand people who can't deal with change or who are afraid of new technology. Or
and you can
during my
show
next
that
interview,
in your
make a brief
experience.
presentation on my tablet.
Oh, I love that. But you can show jumping into new realms through your experiences as well.
Yeah.
What about the reverse with the with millennials, new grads? What are some ideas for addressing the baby elephants?
So I had a client. She was the daughter of another career coach. And we were sitting having coffee, and she was very frustrated that she wasn't getting anywhere, and some of her girlfriends were just getting jobs left and right. And she's telling me about how she worked through college, and she'd gone to Spain, and she'd done a Brazilian package for the World Cup a number of years ago, and so I went backwards, and I said, I went to her and said, well, let me pretend that I'm you and that you're me. And so I rattled back the things that she did. I said, and I'm trying to find it. In addition to my studies for work, I've always tried to find the time to give back to my community. So not only is it appreciated by those I help, but also others who've seen the perspectives. So, again, in my research, I found the difference between what HR people and the Gen X, Gen Y think of themselves. When it comes to being people savvy, the millennials think they're very 65% think they're very people savvy, yet only 14% of human resources professionals do.
Oh, okay.
35% of kids think that they're tech savvy, where HR people, it's 86%. When it comes to employer loyalty, 82% of youngsters think they're loyal. Only 1% of the HR people do. But getting back to this person, I said, do you see the same lack of work ethic for most people of my generation as I do? I've worked steadily since I was 13. I worked throughout my college years to pay for much of the tuition for my international business and marketing degree, as well as all my spending money. One of my jobs was an internship in Spain during my junior year. I was fully immersed in the marketing efforts and culture. In another position, I was on the team that created the marketing material that was included in our World Cup packages. Of all the people in my age group, I know no one who's as willing to get their hands dirty as me.
Yeah.
This person was hired by Google. She was promoted within a year and moved from Silicon Valley to Mexico City, and now they're paying for her international master's degree in Switzerland.
Wow. Now, did you include that language on page 3 cover letter, LinkedIn, and into her... and as part of her interview answers, her responses?
Oh, sure. Yes. I want people to have their star stories or SAR stories or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
I know what a star is. I don't know what a SAR is.
CAR is what I like. Challenge, action, result. Close enough. Yeah.
Yeah. They got a million names for them.
Yeah.
But, that was one of her stories.
Okay. I love that. And you, in those couple of sentences, you dispelled multiple myths all with one fell swoop.
Yes.
Love that.
And you got in your degree, you have your work ethic, that I'm not the same as everybody else of my age group. So you're just chopping away at all those biases.
Love that. So let's shifting gears really quickly. Someone comes to you and says, Al, help me in 30 seconds. I'm getting ready to go on a job search. What are 2 tools that I need to have that I can't be without?
You need to have a resume that is created to get through applicant tracking system software packages. Mm-hmm. You need to have a LinkedIn profile so that you're found for your desired job title on the first 2 pages at least. You should have a professional brand that separates you from other people. I want folks to have a value proposition deck that you can leave behind on a final interview with a 90 or 100-day plan of action included. I want folks to have all the tools that they need in order to differentiate themselves to get found first, differentiate themselves from everyone else, and to be the only choice for the hiring manager.
I love that. So, quick question about the 90-day plan. You hear all the time of people preparing things and then they feel like they got coached and then they took their free stuff and they ran with it.
Yeah, that's happened in the past. And I tell people that it needs to be real high level.
So don't give them the secret sauce.
Yes. I want clients to take notes, ask lots and lots of questions. This should be a give and take. As a matter of fact, the first question I like to ask, I'd like clients to ask in an interview is, after you've made nice for a couple of minutes, hopefully you've had the chance to review my resume. What is it about my background that maybe you want to speak with me today?
Great question. Yeah.
The more they talk, the smarter you become. And you want to have a series of questions that you want answers for. So by you asking questions, you can take notes, and then you can create a 90-day plan and ask the question, what should I focus on in the first 30, 60, and 90 days after you hire me? Again, the assumptive close. And then put those into, we know a lot of the things we're going to have to do in the first 90 days after we get a new job. So that can be the standard part of your value proposition or your 100-day plan, 90-day plan. But then if you add a number of the points that the hiring manager tells you that they want you to focus on, then it becomes a document that's shared between the two of you. And you can ask the question, well, since last time, I put together a 90-day plan of action based on what we discussed in our last interview. But I'm sure there were things we didn't cover. Would you mind taking a look and either adding or taking out things? And as soon as they start writing on your 90-day plan, just reel the fish in.
Got it. So you need to time the 90-day that value proposition project, or you need to time it well, because you obviously would you say do it during the first face-to-face? Because what if you don't?
I would do that in the final interview, and it's one of those that can be left behind. You can, if you try to do a 90-day plan by guessing, you're going to guess wrong sometimes.
Right.
So if you are asking questions about what they want you to do in the first 30, 60, and 90 days after they hire you, there's the assumptive close again.
Right.
Then they're telling you what they want, so you're going to parrot it back to them during the day.
So if you don't make it to that last round, then hold off on it?
I would.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Okay. Last question. My favorite one. What is next for you? You have these 2 books. You have all your workshops. You have your practice. What are you planning in 2020?
Okay, so for 2020, there will be an interview book with a couple of coaches, Richard Morgan and Cindy Sapoznik, who I work closely with.
Okay.
We have created a boutique outplacement company called the Hired Authority, which we have just signed our first client, which is one of the largest healthcare organizations in their space.
Okay, so truly keeping up on what's going on the other side of the table. I love that.
Yes, yeah, and so lots of clients. Unfortunately, I'd like all of them to go away in a good way. I always tell them that I hope I never see you again.
That's right.
As a client, that
I'm doing my job. Goodbye. Yeah. Oh, that's exciting. So if people want to learn more or reach out to you, I have included thehiredguy.com and LinkedIn, your URL on your bio. Is there any other place that you recommend people go to learn more or find out about you?
Well, they could also go to thehiredauthority.com, which is that website is coming up sometime this week.
Okay, wonderful. Well, Al, thank you so much. I know you're so busy. This is great advice. And I'm going to be thinking about those baby elephants when I'm writing my documents.
You have to placate the pachyderms.
Love that. I love that. Well, thank you again.
It's been my pleasure.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Resume Storyteller with Virginia Franco. To learn more about storytelling strategies to catch the eye of today's skim online readers, hiring and decision makers, go to www.virginiafrancoresumes.com.